Podcasting from Dallas, Texas. I am Shireen, and this is the Yumlish podcast. Yumlish is working to empower you to take charge of your health through diet and exercise and reduce the risk of chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Through amplifying the voices of healthcare professionals, educators, and communities, we hope to share a unique perspective and a culturally relevant approach to managing these chronic conditions with you each week. Registered dietitian Tami Ross talks to us about her general approach to chronic illness management through nutrition. She talks to us about her books and really addressing the misconception that eating healthy needs to be expensive, as well as some simple tips for eating healthy for those with diabetes. Tami Ross is a nationally recognized registered dietitian, diabetes care and education specialist, author, spokesperson, blogger, and consultant with over 25 years experience in diabetes care and education. She was named Diabetes Educator of the Year a few years back and served as the 2013 president of the American Association of Diabetes Educators. Tami has co-authored 11 books, including the bestseller, What Do I Eat Now in its third edition. Welcome.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. We're going to have a good chat today.
I am looking forward to it, Tami. Let me tell you. And you know, I just read the bio, so the bar has been set way high right now. So.
Oh my goodness. No. Thank you, though.
Absolutely. So with that, Tami, jumping right in, what led you to a career as a dietitian as a whole, and then more specifically, a dietitian with a focus on working with individuals with pre-diabetes and diabetes?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting question. I've always had an interest in the culinary aspect of food. Come from a family of great cooks. My mom and grandmothers both cook with a pinch of this, a handful of that. And so there's always been that focus on food and particularly healthy eating. Mom always made sure we got our veggies at night. And out of that, really piqued my interest in healthy eating and nutrition. When I was in college, though, initially I was on the med and was going to become a pathologist. And a family physician in the chat introduced me to dietetics. And long story short, here I am. And so I changed courses, changed pathways, kind of mid-course there, and went into dietetics. And interestingly, my primary focus now is diabetes and prediabetes. That was one of my most disliked topics in college. I just thought it was so confusing. And, then it really, I thought a lot about it. And I thought, well, if it's confusing for me, for those folks living with and managing this every hour, every day, just have such great admiration for them. And so what was once really a challenge to me, it really became my passion. So every career choice that I've had has had diabetes and prediabetes as an aspect. So here we are.
As a practicing dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist, what is your general approach to chronic illness management through nutrition?
Oh, that's an interesting question. As I think about really my focal area of diabetes and prediabetes, the number one question that people ask, research shows, when they're diagnosed with diabetes is, what do I eat now? And that's really where the title came for my book, What Do I Eat Now? That's kind of a guidebook for people with diabetes and prediabetes. And I really love the concept of food as medicine. And I've seen firsthand the impact that food choices can have. I think back to my grandmother when she was diagnosed with high cholesterol, seeing how modifications that she made and what she ate really went on to help her live a healthy. And I think about a patient that I saw just this last week who thought she couldn't eat whole grains. She has prediabetes. And so one of her favorite things was whole grain toast with avocado mashed on it. And she had not been eating that. But once she started checking her blood sugar, she saw, hey, I have power to manage what I eat, and it can make a big difference. And she learned that she could eat foods that she didn't think she could. So that concept of food as medicine is just really powerful. And as we think about folks that are living with prediabetes, you may have heard of the Diabetes Prevention Program. It's a national program and really focuses on the lifestyle aspect and how making small changes in what you eat and in physical activity can help turn back the clock, so to speak, and prevent or delay that conversion to type 2 diabetes. And so, I love that culinary aspect and the power of food as medicine, so to speak, and that it can have.
We're actually, Yumlish, we're one of the approved providers of the Diabetes Prevention Program. So we're both learning something.
I did not know that. Well, hey, perfect. Yes, we are. As I think about just all of the folks that have crossed my path over the years and, what principles and beliefs have really been impactful, I think, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that managing diabetes, it can be overwhelming. And what the research shows is it takes 143 minutes a day to participate in managing diabetes, with what you eat, physical activity, taking medicines, monitoring. That's 2.5 hours a day. And so it can be overwhelming. And I think also it's important as we think about what are we going to recommend, really looking at what evidence says. And all of my publications are evidence-based. It's the latest science. It's not just what I think. And so with that, one of the core principles is that healthy eating should be pleasurable. We want that to be a pleasurable part of life. Our culture, our traditions, our favorite foods, our family and upbringing, all of that really impacts what we eat. And so that you really shouldn't cut out foods unless it's necessary. For instance, maybe cutting back on salt to help manage blood pressure. So maintaining that pleasure of eating. And I want people to know as well that healthy eating does not have to be expensive. In fact, one of my books that we may touch on in a little bit later is Diabetes Meals on $7 a day or less. And so with that, it doesn't have to be expensive. And we want people to know that these days, there's not a one size fits all approach to healthy eating. I remember, years ago, everybody was told no concentrated sweets if you found out your blood sugar was high, or you need to eat an 1,800 calorie diet. And what we know now is there's a lot of options. And I think we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the eating patterns that can help manage diabetes and prediabetes. But we want people to know that small swaps, small changes, they add up over time. And just really encouraging people to take it one meal, one day, 1 week at a time, because it can be overwhelming to think about overhauling, maybe what you eat. A great example is if you just make a small swap with salad dressings. If you swap 3 tablespoons of vinaigrette in place of a creamy version, like a ranch or blue cheese, it saves 100 calories. You do that several days a week, you've saved, 400 or 500 calories. And so that adds up over time. So just think about small swaps in maintaining that pleasure in eating. I think those are so important.
What are some simple health tenets you feel are helpful for someone with diabetes?
So I think it comes down to 3 core things to think about: what you buy, when you buy it, and where you buy it. So those are 3 really important principles. So when you think about what you buy, I always encourage people to start with planning a few meals. It doesn't have to be complicated. Think about foods that your family enjoys, maybe, foods that are part of your tradition, your culture. And how can you plan 5 meals? It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe you can do that while you're sitting in traffic these days. But from that, you can then create a shopping list. And I always encourage people, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And so from that simple meal plan, you can create a shopping list, which is going to help you get through the grocery quicker. And it can help prevent impulse buys and keep you focused. What the science shows us is that every minute that we're in the grocery, we spend $2. So if we can get in and out, that's going to save us money. If you have a list, it's going to get you from impulse buys, which really is just spend $5 or $10 a week on impulse items. Gosh, that's $260, $520 a year. So those are a couple things to consider. But in terms of what you're buying, I'm a big fan of looking for items that are on sale and kind of knowing what the sales cycles are at your grocery. I know at the one that I go to frequently, they often put things on sale on Sunday morning. And so I'll sometimes go, meat is often, meat, seafood are the big ticket items. So I'll go and see what specials they have. And my biggest bargain was they had lean lamb chops on sale, and I got $80 worth for $16. So, I think it's just a great illustration. Brought it home, packaged it up, froze it. But just a great illustration of how knowing when the sales cycles are can lead to big savings. And then with fruits and vegetables, we talk a lot about trying to get more non-starchy vegetables because they don't affect blood sugar as much as, say, the starchy version does. But looking for what's in season. If you think about tomatoes, winter tomatoes versus summer tomatoes, well, in the summer, they're going to be cheaper, they're going to taste better, and have a better nutrient profile. And so buying what's in season. And I'm also a big fan of opting for less than perfect produce. There's now produce delivery services where they will ship you the misfits, so to speak. You can really use those in salads and soups and casseroles. They don't have to be perfectly beautiful. And so that can help as well. And a couple of other just kind of general tips are, store loyalty programs can save you big. Coupons. I know several people that still clip coupons, or you can use digital versions. And then lastly, store brands or generic brands can save 15 to 30%. One of my favorites is marinara. That's a store brand, and it tastes exactly like fresh homemade marinara, 30% less than the name brand version. So gosh, I could give you lots of tips. But then when we think about where you buy and when you buy, buying at maybe warehouse clubs to stock up, but then thinking about even places like dollar stores. There was an article that was published a few years back that showed how 2 people could eat for $39 for a week shopping at a Dollar Tree. So where you buy and then the time or when you buy. Always encourage people to do their shopping when they're not tired. So maybe that's in the morning or on a weekend morning and when you're not hungry, because then everything looks good. So what, when, and where you buy can really help with savings.
Your book, Diabetes Meals on $7 a day or less, it addresses this misconception that eating healthy needs to be expensive. What are the best tips for someone who has diabetes, who's trying to eat healthy? How can they really eat on a budget?
So I think the first thing we want to mention is getting familiar with where carbohydrate comes from. What foods have carbohydrate? Because your blood sugars will pretty much directly follow the amount of carbohydrate that you eat. So with diabetes or prediabetes, where we're trying to manage blood sugars and keep them in range, that's a big factor. And so carbs, just at a basic level, we find those in fruits and starchy vegetables. We find them in grains and dairy foods, and of course, sweet treats. And then non-starchy vegetables, things like our carrots and broccoli, green beans, that kind of thing, they have a little bit. So getting familiar with carbs. And then when it comes to your meat, really choosing lean proteins is something that we talk a lot about, trying to fit fish in twice a week. And the evidence is clear that those heart-healthy omega-3 fish fats are good for us. And I encourage my patients to think about plant-based proteins and how they can fit maybe beans in or soy-based proteins, because those are going to be, heart healthy as well. And then figuring out at breakfast, oftentimes people say I get hungry during the morning. And so thinking about what are some good sources of protein at breakfast, a boiled egg is simple. If you're a yogurt fan, you may want to switch to Greek yogurt or Icelandic yogurt. They're naturally higher in protein, lower in carbohydrate. And so really choosing lean protein. And then with fats, switching to the healthy fats. And what those are the plant-based fats. So they're typically liquid at room temperature versus the solid fats like butter or cream cheese. And how I explain it to my patients is, these healthy plant-based liquid fats, they can kind of flow through us. But if you think about the solid fats, if you were to melt those and pour them down your kitchen sink, they're going to clog up your drain. And so likewise, they do the same in our body. And, another area that the book talks a lot about is fiber. And it doesn't have to be difficult, but just with a few intentional choices, using or including a half a cup of raspberries at breakfast, a medium pear at lunch, and a cup of navy beans at dinner gets you your 28 grams of fiber a day, which is about, what we as women need. So that gives you just a little glimpse of a few of the tips in this Do I Cook Now companion cookbook are loaded with easy, doable tips that are not complicated. So it really translates the science into practice.
You have a best-selling guidebook, What Do I Eat Now and What Do I Cook Now, as companion cookbook that are practical guides to diabetes nutrition. And also for our listeners here today, we do have a special treat, so stick around to the end. There may not be a giveaway. But coming back to the books, what are some simple tips for eating healthy for those with diabetes?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So I was talking about the protein perspective of Icelandic and Greek yogurt, but any of the yogurts can have added sugar from sweeteners. And so really a great point, whether it's yogurt or another food that you're looking at, check out the label. And what you want to look at is to see, are there added sugars? They'll be noted there. And look at the total carbohydrates and see what that is. And kind of a good bet, something that I do at home is just buy the unflavored, unsweetened plain Greek yogurt. And then you can add some fresh berries to it, put a few walnuts on top, gives you your healthy fat, and it tastes great. So that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
You mentioned with the yogurt, I wanted to also point out, because yogurts can have hidden sugars, right? I'd love for you to touch on that.
Yeah. So, kind of an easy way to think about how do I portion my plate and what do I put on it with my favorite foods. It's a simple 4-step method. And so you divide your plate in half and you're going to fill half of it with the non-starchy vegetables. And so that may be things, like a fresh salsa, for instance, or salad greens. Then 1/4 of the plate going to have your protein foods. And so that might be things like lean pork or chicken or fish. And then the other 1/4 of the plate is the carbohydrate foods. And so that's something we really think about a lot with, particularly many cultural foods, beans, rice, tamales, tortillas. Those type of things are all going to fit into that carbohydrate portion. That's what's going to raise your blood sugar. And so what I would encourage people is whatever your favorite foods are. I'm in Kentucky, and so we have our favorite foods here too, but you really want to think about and get familiar and build your awareness about how much carbohydrate are in those. And again, you probably don't have to cut all those out, but maybe it's a little bit different portion than you would eat before. And then that 4th step of portioning your plate is really looking at, we want to try to have a calorie-free beverage. So I know some of my friends from Colombia, they like fruit-based beverages. And so again, thinking about getting familiar with what is the carbohydrate, are there swaps that you can make to help keep that carbohydrate in your range?
Yes, ma'am. And so with that, another question that I have for you on this is when you're looking at sort of cultural foods specifically, can you speak to some cultural foods and how that fits in with sort of this diabetes diet?
Are there particular foods you were thinking about culturally?
No, they're just generally trying to get an idea. Didn't have a specific food in mind. At Yumlish, we do a lot of work specifically within Latino population, and even within that, specifically looking at Mexican food. But no, I didn't. For the question, I didn't have a specific cuisine in mind. And so, with that, Tammy, we're toward the end of the episode. At this point, I'd love for listeners to learn more about how they can learn more about your work, connect with you, social media. Would love to learn more about that.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. And at Facebook, it's What Do I Eat Now? So that's related to my book by the same name. Also on LinkedIn, Twitter, at Tami Ross RD. And then my website, which we're working on. So it's under constructions for a little bit of an overhaul, but TamiRossRD.com. And so What Do I Eat Now and What Do I Cook Now are the two companion books. And Diabetes Meals on $7 a day or less is the other.
And so we are doing a giveaway, Tammy. So which book are we giving away today?
What do you want to give away?
So what do you think about the What Do I Eat Now and then the companion What Do I Cook Now?
Happy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Look at there we go. Ask and there we go. So we will be having both of those books. What Do I Eat Now? A Guide to Eating Well with Diabetes or Pre-Diabetes in the third edition. And then What Do I Cook Now? Recipes and Action Plan for People with Diabetes. Both of them written here by Tami Ross. So we will be doing that giveaway. Find that giveaway. Head over to our social media. We're at Yumlish_ on Instagram, at Yumlish on Facebook. Find us there. Enter in that giveaway to get both these books. And so with that, Tami, I want to thank you so very much for your time here with us on the podcast today.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yes, absolutely. And we're looking forward to this giveaway here that we'll also be doing with our listeners. So with that, to our listeners, thank you again for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode as much as we did. Thank you to Tammy again, and make sure to connect with her offline after this episode. Here's a short clip of next week's episode with Dr. Thorndike. Make sure to tune in next week. We'll see you then. Thank you for listening to the Yumlish podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media at Yumlish_ on Instagram and Twitter, and at Yumlish on Facebook and LinkedIn for tips about managing your diabetes or other chronic conditions. You can also visit our website, yumlish.com, for even more information and to get involved with all of the exciting opportunities Yumlish has to offer. All of the links are in the show notes below, so please don't hesitate to check us out. If you like this week's show, make sure to subscribe to the Yumlish podcast, give us a like, comment, or a 5-star review, and share us with a friend. This is Shireen signing off. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Remember, your health always comes first. Stay well.